Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about how they became successful today. And I have with me my amazing friend Chiraag, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mel. I know we met a few months ago, didn't we, when we were working together a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How would I describe myself? I mostly work with solving sales performance. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you're running a business, and we all know how much mental energy and attentional space sales takes up if you're running a team. So I help out with the performance side on the sales team, either or both, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what I do. My background is I come from inside the biggest B2C sales training company called Seventh Level. So I was like the lead one-to-one trainer inside there. I think, Mel, we talked about this before. I used to have a crazy calendar where I used to have 14 back-to-back one-on-ones a day. And just had a crazy amount of volume that I did through there. And since there, I had different philosophies on how I think sales should be done. But not only that,
Mm-hmm.
what really gets results. And I've been applying that more specifically to work more one-on-one with clients because I'm not really a big believer in a one size fits all model that actually people make buying decisions for different things through different decision gates. Like you might decide to buy a car through a different decision gate versus why you might decide to buy a home versus why you might decide to buy a piece of software or consulting, etc. So that's what I'm really about. It's about getting very specific to what you do so that you actually get results.
Gotcha. It's awesome. So, how did you even get into sales in the first place?
I had a failed business ultimately. I had a mindset coaching business that was not generating enough clients realistically, and I had to make a tough decision that hey, we made the decision that I was going to be the main provider in our relationship ultimately, and I had to just get my big boy pants on in a way and go do something else, right? And yeah, and that's how I got started in sales. It was a necessity to actually go make money, and I like the aspect. I've always loved the human aspect of things because I used to play poker professionally for a few years that I don't talk about so
Mm-hmm.
much. But I could never sit and just play online poker. I would do it for like a month, but then I would just procrastinate or something and get out of it, right? But the human element
Mm-hmm.
of going to the casino and playing, that was quite easy for me. I could go do that. And so yeah, that's how I got started in sales. It's probably around the COVID time is when I did. When I went off from my business into full-time sales.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you do any sales training or coaching, or were you self taught?
A little bit of both, and then I went in and did. Yeah, I bought some sales. I joined some sales training groups, and as I got in and networked in, then I started to pay for more high ticket training and coaching. That's how I got involved with it more. Yeah,
Interesting. What was the mindset coaching like philosophy? Like, what kind of coaching was it?
for me, so I was coaching professional poker players then because there's the whole. So probably the hardest bit of sales in effect is the mental aspect of it as well, right? The rejection, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
going on a slump, all of that stuff. Poker's a bit different in that you lose money when that thing happens, right? So if you ever lost like a really tidy five-figure sum before, that's a hard thing to get out of bed of from the next day sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on your tolerance. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of that is dealing with that, but also the mental aspect that can happen when making decisions when you're playing poker. All of these unconscious things come into play, like you being scared or other aspects. So that's what I focused on at that time. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
bit too niche and it was something that was a bit premature. I'm really glad that I did it because it led to this where I am now. But at the time, it was a little bit naive to think that, okay, I could build something enough for myself at that time.
Interesting. So, how were you able to get hired at seventh level?
Good question. Yeah, I networked myself into Sales Sniper, which is the sister arm, which is the sales agency. So they did like a sales done for you agency for
Mm-hmm.
various online offers, right? They would come in, be like, okay, we're going to get. Let's say you're an online business, they would be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we want to take sales off our plate, right? We give it to the agency. They would hire the reps like us. We would come in with this whole ethos and brand about us being snipers and really effective, and then we would come in and basically just run the sales calls and run the sales. Yeah. And then from there, I was on a really good offer to begin with, a crypto offer, and then that died down. And then I bounced around these different offers which weren't that great. And then from there, I made the transition into seventh level.
And so you said that you were doing 14 back-to-back one-on-ones per day, and that was with people within that program in seventh level. It was one-on-one coaching program.
It was the highest program as the inner circle. I don't believe they have one on one anymore. Actually, in fact, they know they
Mm-hmm.
don't. So at that time, we had clients across every industry because the whole the whole angle and was that this works across multiple industries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, every industry you can name, almost I've worked with, because that's what we actually had to deal with. And interestingly, it wasn't often just the regular like biz op high ticket space. It was a lot of financial advisors, it was roofing, it was solar, it was, whatever you can name, it was there
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. Yeah.
Interesting. And so, how long were you working there?
I was at Seventh for I think about 3 years or maybe slightly less. I think alongside Snail Sniper around about 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Wow. So, why did you ultimately decide to leave?
A very good question. Do you want the generic answer or the real answer?
Let's go with the real answer.
Yeah. It was, I've always been very growth oriented, and I felt I got to a position there which I felt like I was doing the thing I was built to do, which is to teach and to help people get
Mm-hmm.
results. But I felt I was getting to a place where I wasn't really growing. That's one thing. The other aspect was a bit more spiritual and prayer led because I asked in prayer whether I should leave, but I didn't have any online presence or any audience or anything. Right. And I kept being told, yes, you should go, which felt very scary at the time because it's
Mm-hmm.
me, my wife, my little boy, and I'm the one that works. Right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Anna, my wife, does more than me, by the way, because she has to take care of Jaden, who's crazy. But it's yeah, that's why I left. Ultimately, it was a big leap of faith when I left. Very much, as in leap of faith, meaning it was incredibly uncertain whether what I started to do would work. I
Mm-hmm.
did have a little bit of the certainty that hey, I know I'm getting what I'm doing is to get a lot of messages of people getting results from what I was doing in the one-to-ones. So I had the faith and hope that actually some of them would come along and want to work with me.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So after you left, what was that transition like to building your current business?
Interesting because I'm confident. I was confident on the getting results side and on the sales side because I'd have to be because I'm teaching it, right? It's then it was the whole, you could call it the beast of marketing, right? And
Yeah.
if you guys are out there, you probably are on LinkedIn and things, you see that how saturated like the sales training and coaching space is. That felt daunting to me at the time because also I had an aspect deeper inside myself where I felt smaller or less than some of the other people in the space, which thankfully is not really at play at more anymore from a lot of the inner work that I've done.
Hmm.
So yeah, the whole thing of marketing was daunting, plus the inner side more than anything of how actually I saw my position in the market.
Interesting. So can you expand more about what types of inner work that you did?
Yeah, it's a big topic actually. Inner work that I've done. So I've got a lot of the work. Inner work is a lot of the work that I now do with clients as well, right? But I also have an inner transformation coach that I work with to go through some of these deeper aspects because I think if your audience, I'd imagine, tend to be more owners, right, and entrepreneurs, right? And we tend to be we tend to pick up the habits well. Like we do things like we journal, right? We meditate, we pray, or all these various things
Mm-hmm.
you do for your inner well-being. But what I found from doing these things is that self-reliance has its limits, that actually certain parts of our brains we can't access unless we do that with somebody else. So for example, I journal quite a lot. Like some days I might have 5 journal entries on that single day, right? But even still, when I go turn up with my inner transformation coach, the work that we do is far more complete. So the inner work is a lot about finding these parts of yourself, quite often the ugly truths that you hate to admit. But interestingly, I'm hope if this lands is if you look at the symbol of a yin yang, right, which is
Mm-hmm.
black and white, and inside the black is the white, and inside
Mm-hmm.
the white is the black. What happens is through these quote unquote ugly parts of ourselves, that's where the actual more complete solutions come through. These deeper spiritual states of being, etc., that we're all really more deep down seeking. And there could
Mm-hmm.
be more of this integration of these ugly parts. I can give you some examples if you like, because that's quite theoretical, but hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, some examples would be great. I'm very curious because I'm interested because I've tried many types of therapy and everything, maybe more of like the Western methodology, but I'm always open to learning what works for other people.
Yeah, I can give some examples from life. I get either from me or from clients. So clients might be better because it can make sense from a business standpoint, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's one closer for that health holistic business that I work with, right? That we might have mentioned a bit off air actually. Is she's successful. Like last month, she generated just under $200,000 in revenue for the business. This month, I'm not sure what she did in the first week, but in the second week, she generated $80,000 in revenue. And then another week, she generated over $50,000 in revenue. And then when we met this week, when we met, and she's very self-aware, she does a lot of journaling. She came up and she talked very openly about how she's doubting her own capabilities, right? So, and when we explored it in a metaphorical way, in fact, we didn't explore this one metaphorically. We explored it to find that there's a part in her that finds herself back into this doubt cycle or doubting her capabilities. And in this case, we actually traced it more back to where's that energy coming from her parents' side more. But it's all done through an unconscious way. Another modality we might use is to see what you find is when you arrive into these very reoccurring patterns, maybe it's in your relationship or with the business, like your business always gets to a certain level, we never break past it, or you keep finding yourself in certain relationships, whatever it might be in your life, right? These reoccurring patterns actually, when you explore the brain with somebody that knows what they're doing, you find that they have a metaphorical pictorial representation. So with her, as well as an example, she had another metaphorical representation, which is she had a wall in front of her at one stage, right? And she kept meeting prospects on her sales calls that wanted to do the thing, but they were kept being denied financing. Interestingly, can you see how that connects to the metaphorical position she's in? So in effect, her metaphorical position is attracting that because she's metaphorically against a wall. In her representation, in the representation of her problem, there was a door to the left. So in that scenario, we had to go through that, right? But when she went through that, she was still falling through the air. So we had to have her come back to ground and be grounded, and then she could move again. That was actually during a period in December where she had a dip. She went down to maybe collecting about $60,000 or $70,000 in cash in revenue, right? And then after, I think that session was quite a big pivotal point. And then in January, she had a $200,000 month. So I think the quick recap of this, it's always very specific, these situations you get into. And this right brain is right brain. It's very abstract to these representations that we have of our problems, problem states that we get into. What I found is I do so much of the practice, but it's very, very difficult to get to by yourself because your conscious mind keeps getting in the way. But having somebody else there to do it with you is where you can access these states and find these interesting solutions to problems that have been reoccurring for a long time. Hopefully that makes sense. Did that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it was an energetic thing because she had sort of a mental block. She was energetically attracting prospects who could not get financing, even though she just couldn't close them at all.
Exactly. Yeah. It seems strange or metaphysical, but you might understand it, right? It can't be explained through logic, right? In a sense, right? But that is exactly it. Yeah. There's these energetic positions we get into. An example from my life is I've done a lot of sales skill training. When our boy Jaden was born and I came back to do selling again, for the first 3 weeks, I didn't make a sale. Now, did my skill set go down? No, not really. It was something deeper at play. Probably some type of position where I didn't really want to be there. I just wanted to be there at home, enjoying that time with him.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've been thinking about this a lot more lately in my life, at least in terms of relationships. Like, why do I keep attracting these types of people, no matter where I meet them, whether it's like an app or in person, or they slide into the DMs? For some reason, I would fall into these same patterns of
Yeah.
me mothering the other person. Like over time, it would become like this, or it would just become more transactional. This dynamic of like, why am I attracting these people who sort of force me, or they're not being masculine, so I have to take on the masculine role. I'm planning every date, every trip, being the project manager, the CEO of our relationship, and then it just kills the romance. And just like, why is this happening again? Is this, and then, just like trying to go through the logical aspect of like, okay, well, no one's perfect. Maybe we can work on this. Let's try couples therapy. And so I've done that in the last 2 relationships that I've been in. And then ultimately realizing, like, at a certain point, like, I was projecting onto the other person of what I thought they could be and what we could be if they only changed this thing, or if they tried harder, but they were never going to actually do that. So, but yeah, I've been thinking a lot more about life stuff, whether it's relationships or everything, just on an energetic field or world. So it's really interesting that you say that.
Yeah. What I would recommend is, if you haven't already, if it hasn't been fully resolved, is work with somebody who knows what they're doing in that space, because you'll probably find that you're in this energetic position where it's a recurrence, right? It's maybe a different situation each time, but
Mm-hmm.
But the experience itself is very similar. So there'll be something deeper at play inside you. That's again, if you work with someone that knows what they're doing, then they can access
Mm-hmm.
that, and you can actually get the changes that you're actually looking for. Hopefully, because some things are very complicated. Some of these
Mm-hmm.
relationship dynamics can be very, very complicated.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Glad we talked about that.
Yeah, I can link you some stuff after this if you like for things you might want to look into. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd love to learn about that because this year, like, I have committed to, I'm not looking for a relationship. I just want to focus on myself. I did some intensive therapy and I think it definitely helped after my last relationship.
Mhm.
But this year is all about just pouring back into me because I realized, like, after being in almost back to back relationships for the last 3 years until last September, I was like, oh my gosh, had I poured all of that time and energy into myself, I would be way further along in my career because of, societal programming, pressure from my family, cultural pressure. I was like, oh, I need to get married. I need to have a family. I need to at least be engaged by a certain point. But so many of those things I realized were just out of my control. I can't force someone to be with me, nor would I want to. And so when I sort of just like gave up the need to control and the need to have all of these like societal markers of success or whatever in life, that I was just kind of like, okay, I will figure it out on my own timeline, but I know that I deserve to have all of my time and energy. And since I've been focusing on me and pouring into my content and my podcast, things have grown significantly. And I've found so much fulfillment in building my personal brand and the opportunities and the people who have come into my life as a result of it. And I know there's still growth and work to be done, but at least I have more clarity on where I want to be going. And like I was telling you
Mhm.
earlier, like I was at this crossroads recently deciding what to do. Like, should I continue to try to scale and invest into my business and ads and hiring more people? But that's not something I'm truly passionate about. I'm sure it will make me more money if I follow those steps, but will also take on more risk. I'll probably be more stressed, but I
Yeah.
realize like my priority is freedom. And part of
Yeah.
that is financial freedom, but there are many ways to go about that, especially now that I have more opportunities as opposed to scaling a company and the headaches that come with managing a team.
Yeah, yeah, you're in an interesting position. Yeah, yeah, that's there's quite a lot to that. I love that because there is definitely an interconnection between your personal life and your business life, right?
Hmm.
And there's these positions that we find ourselves in energetically, which are really interesting to explore. And logically, you'll find that sometimes you can diagnose a problem, you can say all the consequences of it, you can give all
Hmm.
the examples of it, and you can really point your finger at what it is. But if it
Hmm.
doesn't change, then I would really recommend to explore this right brain metaphorical work that I can link you to afterwards if you like.
Definitely. Yeah. Cause, especially because I've done almost like 50 or 60 podcasts now. And a lot of the
Nice.
people, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've talked to are immigrants or children of immigrants. And they're very common themes like growing up with a scarcity mindset, overcoming that lack mindset to become abundant. And then that's when people became wealthy or their businesses exploded or, things completely changed. So I've been thinking so much about this like energetic part, but also like inherited trauma or generational trauma and epigenetics and the cultural messaging that's passed down from generations, especially when only one or two generations ago, a lot of our parents and grandparents came from war torn countries and extreme hardship, and they get stuck in that, survival mindset and pass it on through generations. But we're sort of the first generation to openly talk about mental health and have so many resources and content and chat GPT and all these things where you could just really just look things up and try to understand at least logically first, like, why is this happening and how can I change this? Because if it doesn't if it continues, then we'll just continue to pass it on to our children and grandchildren. So I've been very aware of that.
Yes, yeah, there is a lot of programming that gets passed on because you probably hear it a lot. Everyone knows about childhood patterns and things, but yeah, we just absorb so much from our parents. There's a lot we can talk about there, but it's all very specific.
Hmm.
The other interesting point, if I move it just to the business side, is we talk about these metaphors. Actually, what we don't realize, I didn't realize either, is that if you have a business where you've tried a bunch of things when it comes to strategy and tactics, but things haven't moved, the
Hmm.
constraint might not be inside what you're doing strategically or tactically.
Yeah.
What we don't realize is actually we all have a conceptual metaphor for our business. So for example, I did this work with the inner transformation coach, and where my business looked like metaphorically was this big reservoir in a desert
Mhm.
with a couple of streams coming in. Then I had the salt flats. If you've ever been to Bolivia, there's like these salt flats, right? And then a mountain in the distance.
Mhm.
And we explored it. So like the business makes sense because everybody in the desert environment, you'll need a reservoir. So it makes sense. But do I want to keep the concept of a business as staying in the desert where there might not be that many people that come across it, right?
Mhm.
And so we've been exploring actually, this is a lot of the work that I'm doing right now within my business, is changing the concept between one or two different things,
Mhm.
changing what the business concept is. And so, yeah, that's very interesting because there's no amount of strategy and tactics that I could apply to this business concept right now. It's not going to change the fact that it's in a desert, right?
Mhm.
Whereas my inner transformation coach had a similar thing. His business was this cottage out in the woods with no sign to go there, right? Really, really nice, quaint thing, but like no one's ever going to find out about it, right?
Mhm.
So those are some things to actually, that's exploring business concept is really interesting. And the great thing about that versus your personal problems is you can actually change it to what you want it to be
Mhm. Mhm.
or what it needs to be for the type of business you want to run.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So with your current sales team that you're managing, do you meet with everyone like one on one on a weekly basis, or how do you go about training them?
Yeah, I meet one to one, as you know, when we talked before. That's a big thing that I believe in because it
Mhm.
tends to get the best return on time and results.
Yeah.
So group stuff can be great, but it can just be a bit like it leaves a good feeling, but it doesn't necessarily always give the change,
Mhm.
right? And the great thing about a one-to-one environment is we can get into the personal side of things, is we can get into these deeper aspects if it's appropriate, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes what I found is sales aren't being made because it can be tactical things, but the conversational flow and the sales process flow just isn't matched to how people make buying decisions in that space. That's one thing, right? I do a lot of
Mhm.
that with quite a lot of my other clients, right? Whereas if you know that stuff well, you know the sales process and the conversational flow, you know that really well, but there's still performance not happening, then we can really go into this unconscious side, which is actually really interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, are you planning to take on more individual clients or manage more sales team, or is right now you've got a full plate with what you're doing?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of space, so more teams because of the fact that they for a lot of reasons. If when there's more of an established business, there's a lot more that we can go ahead and do and build towards,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot more ROI for the business that you can generate, right? That's the main thing. Is okay, sales teams. If there are individual solopreneurs and businesses that want
Mhm.
to work on this space, sales process, sales systems, as well as okay, sales performance, then yeah, then it could be either, but mostly teams now. Yeah,
Mhm.
smaller teams, I would say probably between sizes of 1 to 5, because the
Mhm.
work is predominantly one to one that I do.
Gotcha. So, for this current offer, are they planning to scale and hire more people, maybe down
They
the
are they
line?
are currently doing that now. We could even talk about that if you like, if you want to talk about hiring, because that's
Mhm.
been a headache for them. Yeah,
Oh,
for
really?
sure.
What's been the major issue with hiring?
It's probably not just sales, but in sales in particular, there is churn, right? And there's an unpredictability because you
Mhm.
might meet somebody who interviews really well, looks really great from a Loom video, etc. But when it comes to how they perform in the calls, that can be different, right? At the same time, there can be a completely unpredictable nature in their lives that happen. For
Mhm.
example, that closer who had a record November and dipped in December had a really big challenge happen in her personal life, and then multiple challenges happened for her in December.
Mhm.
To, to know whether or not to keep that person or let that person go is an interesting thing in the sales space. So that there's the I just wrote a big I got me and my team to write an article on this. The hiring for salespeople might be the same across the board. Is the unpredictability. You've got to realize that, right? How do you handle it? Is one, you want to simplify your sales process, have it mapped out so that you don't necessarily need A players or unicorn closers to come in
Mhm.
and do really well, right? That requires quite a lot of thought with somebody who knows what they're doing. So it's
Mhm.
mapped out so that when they come in, they can just rely on the assets of the conversational flow, maybe the videos or the assets that people see in between, right?
Mhm.
Or the way you run a demo. That's one thing. The second thing is to recognize that these unconscious things do happen and they do affect performance. So having a way to be able to deal with that. And it's not just
Mhm.
giving advice because that falls flat because their experience is different quite often than the experience that you've gone through.
Yeah.
And so the right advice for them could be completely different than the one that even though you're really good at selling sometimes, right? So that's it, handling the unconscious. The third bit is you do need a contingency plan. because that person who's great, my mentor talks about this recently. So he went to the city in the UK, met this person who was an amazing attitude. They were super aligned. He thought it was going to be an amazing hire. 6 months later, he's having to let them go because they've had personal life stuff come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having a contingency plan, knowing where to source people is a big thing. I think those two, I had one more, but I can't remember the last one. But those are the three main pieces: is
Interesting.
simplifying your sales process, mapping it out. So, where's certainty, knowing how to deal with unconscious patterns, and having a contingency to source more people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big piece for hiring. Yeah, it isn't always easy. But the last piece is knowing how to, I think, to vet them on the front end well. So if you're here and you're hiring for salespeople,
Mm-hmm.
don't fall for the charm or the interview or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Actually have them go through like a mock sales call with you, and then you can assess them. And you might want to have a high bar because it's worth it. Because inside that business, as an example, they've taken on quite a few people, keep coming in and going, and that's been a big time and energy and money
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah, definitely. Because when you and I first met, and I was trying to get into the high ticket space, I think it was before you and I met that I had tried like 4 or 5 different offers.
Yeah,
But the high ticket space is kind of like the wild, wild west. And I didn't have
yeah,
high ticket experience. I had solar experience,
yeah,
cybersecurity, aerospace, and I thought it would be easily transferable. But one of the biggest issues that I had going through these offers is like a lot of them didn't have good systems, management, organization, even a CRM or a dialer. And
yeah,
or they would paint this picture of the business is doing well, we hit this revenue marker, and then you onboard, and then the ads, something happens with the ads or something happens with the lead flow, so then people start quitting. And that's what I saw, at least from the rep side, and from what I've heard from my friends, is like an offer can change in an instant. It could go from doing really well, and then Meta changes the algorithm or something happens, and then you just have to find something else. So people will
yeah,
stay on an offer for maybe 1 month, 3 months, but it's just like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that just gets tiring because you're like, okay, now I have to
yeah.
interview again, submit another Loom video. So
It's
that was
hard to
kind
stay
of,
sharp that way as well. You see, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
And
I
switching
was
different
fortunate.
systems.
Yeah, for example, inside Seventh, they had a really good marketing system. Every week, I had 35 booked meetings every single week, right? Like it was at least I was having, right? And
Hmm.
so it was a completely different game. Yeah, I was fortunate in that sense to
Oh,
just
yeah.
develop,
Well,
to keep sharp.
coming from a company like that, one of the most well-known brands in the space, and with Jeremy and the content that he puts out, and he's just been so consistent for such a
Yeah,
long time with the YouTube, I think podcasts, events, just he's everywhere. So I'm sure they probably don't really struggle with lead flow there, but for everyone else who's not on that level and doesn't have that like household name recognition of their personal brand, it just gets tiring. It's like a revolving door. You have to learn a new script, learn a new system, learn new people, deal with these group trainings where they just watch a Grant Cardone training video and then call it a day. And I was just like so not impressed. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I was like, okay, I'm just going to join this accelerator and learn how to start my own business because I feel like I could do this better. And I'd rather, try it out and see what happens than continue to be disappointed and waste so much time barely making any money
yeah,
going through that process with high ticket.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's about alignment, and eventually, I think you do find your thing if you're really determined, and you get
Yeah.
through the failures. When you're really determined, you eventually find the thing. But yeah, it does often take a few failures, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. It's part of the price of doing what we do ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's an
absolutely.
energetic thing too, and that's something that I'm much more aware of. And one of the things that I've loved about doing my podcast is because I'm learning in real time from having all these experts and entrepreneurs in their own field who have all been through their own struggles, and I'm also able to share it with my viewers and audience.
Yeah,
It just feel like because I'm trying to serve others now and my intention is to truly help, it has opened the door for more opportunities. And now I'm just trying to figure out, should I, because I've gotten like paid like content offers, but because I haven't done any paid content, I'm like, okay, well, I need to make sure whatever I do choose has to fall in line with my brand, my values. I don't just want to, because I get so many offers, but they're for like a probiotic that I've never heard of or a detox tea. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this for $200,
yes, yeah,
So now it's about like really refining and figuring out like what partnerships that I want to make, who I want to align with, and what are my values. So it's been a really cool evolution. And we can talk more after this about what other steps that I'm considering. But yeah, just
Nice.
figuring out how I can give other people a platform so that it's mutually beneficial and everybody wins.
Can I ask you something if that's right? With the clients that you work with on the business side, right?
Mm-hmm.
What tends to be, I don't know, not even maybe not even selling wise, but what tends to be challenges, problems, or things that they deal with that you've noticed, even maybe ones that you don't solve?
Yeah, so a lot of the prospects that we've had have also come from the accelerator that I joined because they had really good marketing. They're very well known in the space, and so a lot of people who joined, including me, realized once we got in that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. A
Yeah.
lot of the AI tools that they said would be available for us to basically sort of be a business in a box where it's just like, okay, you just use these, plug them in, install them in your clients, hire from our hiring portal, and it's done. That was not the case at all. And so what we found was most because they're marketing it to everyone, like, oh, you could start your own AI business, tons of people joined who had never started a business, who had never been in any entrepreneurial space, and who didn't have any sales experience, or in addition, weren't technologically savvy at all. So at first they don't really tell you like you have to have enough sales experience to close your own deals to a point where maybe when it gets big enough you can hire a closer, but even then founder led sales have the highest closing ratio. So there was just a lot of people who were disappointed and realizing like they had no idea what to do, so they needed both technical implementation, maybe even help closing deals, the technical fulfillment, where to hire from, but also lead generation. But the issue was they had spent so much time or so much money on trying to get into this course because they had different levels. One was 10K, which is what I did, and the next one was 25K. But there really wasn't any difference between the 10 and the 25K package except for
Right.
marketing. But these people had spent so much money that they're like, well, we can't afford to do ads. We can't afford to do very much. So as soon as we can, we'd love to use your system because it works and it's cheaper. And LinkedIn is a great place. But it was
They
sad
need they
seeing
need
so
what? They
many.
need clients, they need booked calls, leads. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tough seeing so many people struggle because in the course they teach you, okay, just start with cold email, but cold email is very difficult. They would also tell you, like, start a podcast and then try to flip those people on your podcast into a discovery call and then a sales call. But that is a very long sales cycle with lots of attrition if you even get to the discovery call, but you have to have enough confidence and value to even get there. So there's so many different things that I was just like, okay, so these people need help. At least we can provide them lead generation, but they have to have enough money to hire us.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Okay. That's a good point. Yeah. So it's the getting going of the business and the lead gen side, which is a big piece for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned a lot. And also, another part was like they would tell you, okay, start your agency focusing on a niche that you know about. But some of these people come from trades and maybe roofing or plumbing and HVAC. Well, those industries are very hard to transition to AI, and the margins are pretty low of what you can get. And, they're not on LinkedIn either, so we can't really help you. So I was just seeing like so many issues with it, but it also presented a big opportunity for us because I didn't even realize when I joined the program that other program members would be my prospects. So by
I think
positioning,
it's such a shame that it's such a common theme that we've seen is a lot of these big brands or things that you see online is the delivery is such a different level versus the marketing.
mhm,
And
yeah,
it's because of the incentive is set up that way, unfortunately, because I saw it even with sales coaching, it's very much that way because the incentive, if you think about it, if you're the owner, is to keep getting more people in, right?
hmm,
And the delivery then eventually has to suffer as you try to start to scale it up. And it's a real shame, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
a lot of
it's a
people.
common thing across a lot of offers, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, you see sort of the dark side of it or the depressing side where a lot of people were sort of bamboozled or misled by the marketing and now they're 10K, 25K in debt and they're really don't have very much opportunity to make that back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think continuing to go forward for what we're doing with just the organic content, making LinkedIn posts, doing my podcast, all of that, what I've learned so much just in the last 6 months of building my brand is, it takes so many touch points for people to trust you in order to buy from you. And a lot often now people, they really want to know who you are. It helps for them to see all these podcasts that I've done and all these interviews and people that I've talked to and people who are my friends. And they're like, okay, so she does have her stuff together. She's not one of these just like people who are just starting an agency and don't know what they're doing. So it has positioned me as
Yeah.
an expert more, where at least people know how I can communicate and they have a sense of familiarity before we even get on any discovery call.
Yeah, there's a sense of knowing the human, right? The human
Mm-hmm.
aspect of things versus just yeah, this label or promise or offer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that
Have you?
human side of things is the big piece to focus on a lot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Based on just because AI just has such an impact on the way we interact online, isn't it? In overall content, etc. I don't know about you, Matt. I wanted to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still consume content online? If so, which platforms do you consume on?
Well, Instagram is where I have my biggest following, so I'm on it a decent amount, but also TikTok and YouTube. I think it depends on what kind of content you're looking for, also, but I
That's on the
find,
business side. Do you watch things on YouTube, for example, or on TikTok or Instagram, etc., or look at things there still?
yeah, I mean, definitely partly for a variety of reasons. One is news, because I don't trust major news or corporations in the United States because they're also politically controlled right now. So independent
Yeah,
news and journalism is important. Also, when I travel, I get other people's perspectives on what restaurants to go to or what
yeah, I
cultural
can
sites
understand
and
that. Yeah,
stuff, stuff like that. But and then also just other, because I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to do new content formats. I know that my next step is to do more lifestyle content, like day in my life living in Mexico City, day in my life running a business, or whatever it is. I want to show more of the personal side
yeah.
so people can get to know me on a deeper layer, I guess. So that's
Okay,
what I'm constantly looking for, is that inspiration.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's actually it's good to hear. Good to hear. Or interesting to know that not even good to hear. Interesting to know how you consume content is incredibly like very different to how I use it now. And I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
if more and more people is I use it very, very minimally now. Like I didn't what I didn't I almost consumed no content in January as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if more and more people like if I'm just like a crazy outlier or whether more and more people are going that way. But yeah, that's interesting to
I
know.
think people are trying, and I think that's great. Like, I would love to. I know it's not great in terms of dopamine and screen time and blue light and all of that, and it's sort of a necessary evil for my work. But I know a lot of people who don't or try to do it less, and I think that's absolutely great. For me, it's also because I'm always trying to find the intersection of creating new and better content and doing sort of better editing or higher production, but not necessarily doing more work or spending time and money on it. So trying to find that balance, whether the great thing is there's a lot of different apps that you can use, especially that leverage AI. So if I want to do a voiceover video, I just discovered a new app called Captions where I can just put my videos in, do a voiceover, and then it'll edit it on its own. Or not, and I can prompt the edits instead of manually having to cut and add things myself. So it's getting faster and easier, because I don't necessarily want to spend more time editing, and I don't need to pay an editor right now.
Mhm.
But that's something I'm always thinking about, because you have to keep people's eyeballs on your page. You have to keep it engaging, for better or for worse. It's
Yeah.
just part of the lowest cost marketing that I can do.
Yeah, I understand completely. Yeah. So it's just being on top of what's working for your business and content. Yeah, it's big. I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. What if anything do you feel so for your audience, it's they're starting a business. So it seems like the main problems to start is how do you start it, get it going, right business concept for what you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then lead generation, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do they find the sale on when they get the leads in? How do they find the selling side typically? Or is it normally done without a sales call?
For my prospects, you mean?
Yeah, your prospects. Yeah. Do some of them have sales calls? Some of them not even have sales calls, and people just buy their thing, or what tends to happen?
I think all of them are doing sales calls. I don't know a single
Yeah.
person that is able to just sell without a sales call in that space. A lot of the time, it takes a lot of touch points, a lot of persuasion, or especially if they're sort of new to it. But yeah, definitely requires a sales call.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We could even do another one at some stage where, or anything you want to ask me that you think would be
Mm-hmm.
relevant to them
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the sales call side. Anything you've heard from them that would be like a common thing. I don't know, like they all
Mm-hmm.
deal with think about it objections or whatever it might be. Do you ever
Yeah,
hear anything
definitely.
from them?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's usually the thing is, I feel like in a lot of cases, I need to think about it is inevitable, or people just genuinely have to think about it. They don't want to, you'd rather them have that than buyer's remorse, right? So I definitely think that's one of the biggest things that I and have other people have faced. And I know some people are like, oh, well, if they say that they need to think about it or talk to their spouses because you haven't answered all of their questions and everything. But I don't know. There's something to be said about that, and maybe we could explore that more.
Yeah, there's definitely some things you can do with that, and it's all quite
Mm-hmm.
specific. Yeah, it could be this, it could
Mm-hmm.
be a sales process issue, it could be the way it's being presented, it could be yeah, how the discovery is run, where you demo things. It's all very specific to why that could be coming up. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
normally if it's coming up, then it's actually a sign that there's things that you could be improving on the sales side in some way, or the lead up to it in some way.
Definitely. Yeah, we can talk
Because
more
if you
about that.
if you realize that when if you're having a very truthful, real conversation with somebody, then you don't really say, I need to think about it. You tell them the thing, you tell them the reason, right? Why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's happening, then there are definitely some things that you can do to help out with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like one of my friends has a like event sales agency for ticketing, selling tickets to in-person business conferences and stuff. And a lot of the conferences are a couple months in the future. They're in a city where they don't live in. It will require flights, hotels, budgeting, and then the ticket itself. So they had kind of accepted that it's going to be a two-call close for the most part, unless someone is super passionate about it and everything. But a lot of times they genuinely need to figure out the planning, the
The
logistics, and
logistics.
budgets.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, yeah. See, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's like you might think, okay, you could never do two call, but actually, in some cases, it does make sense to on that particular offer, that particular way that people have to make decisions in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, there's some cool things we can do when you get really specific to the offer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I know we're coming close on time, but we should, yeah, definitely record another podcast here in the coming months. And I'm excited to see what you do with your career and your sales teams.
yeah, it's going to be good fun. Yeah, it's going to be good fun. I think there's some good directions that I'm thinking to go in as well, especially on the
Mm-hmm.
deeper side because that has such a big influence on the whole business,
Mm-hmm.
not just sales. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on what because the business concept is not going to stay a reservoir in the desert. So it's going to change, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be fun, whatever the change is going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, and really good to reconnect.
Definitely. And for everyone else, please tune into the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.